Well, those were the headlines we were tracking for you today. Hello and welcome to Startup Street. I am Megha Vishwanath and with me is my colleague Mugdha Warrior. On what's brewing today, the National Association of Software and Services Companies, or NASSCOM, launched the finding of its Startup Pulse survey 2, titled Indian Tech Startups on the Road to Recovery. Let me quickly take you over what their top findings were. 4 startups became unicorn despite the pandemic. 30% of B2B startups recovered and saw a rise in revenues. The sectors that recovered the fastest were startups in the edtech, fintech, and health tech space. Over 53% of tech startups expected revenue to reach pre-COVID levels in less than 6 months. 43% of these startups have a runway of more than 6 months as compared to 8%, which was what was highlighted in its earlier survey. 25% of surveyed startups have been able to raise funds from prospective investors as compared to 7, again, which was compared to the earlier survey. Sectors like EdTech, Health Tech, SaaS, SMB continue to attract investor interests. Meanwhile, hiring freeze at tech startups dropped by 20%. So lots of good news right there. Also, 60 to 70% of tech startups are relooking at their business models, while 72% of tech startups are enhancing their product offerings and investing in deep tech solutions and enabling automation and analytics for their clients. So lots of emphasis on reimagining business models and a lot of positive signs. With that, Mugdha, over to you.
All right. Right now, let's move on to an exclusive. We understand from government sources that the Consumer Affairs Department has slapped a fine on Amazon for non-compliance with rules around displaying country of origin for all packaged products on its platform. We understand that Amazon has been asked to pay up rupees 25,000 as the department has registered this as a first offense of the company on this issue. And the first offense fine as of now stands at rupees 25,000. For second offense, in fact, it can go up to rupees 50,000, and for subsequent offences on this matter, it could also lead to an imprisonment term, is what we understand. Now, the company has not responded to our queries, and there is still no clarity whether Amazon has received this notice. We understand from government sources that the notice of this fine had gone out to Amazon, to the Amazon's Bangalore office. In fact, last week on Friday, we are still to get clarity on whether Amazon has received this notice. Amazon has not responded to our queries as of now. Now, remember that the Consumer Affairs Department had last month sent notices to both Amazon and Flipkart and had sought explanation on whether all their products display the country of origin and had asked for several details. Now, government officials tell us that Amazon was not able to give evidence of the country of origin label on several of its products, while Flipkart, however, was able to show evidence that the country of origin label is available on all of its products, and hence Flipkart has for now been spared and has not been fined, is what government sources are telling us. Flipkart also did not respond to our queries. We also understand that both Amazon and Flipkart informed the government that they have delisted and blacklisted several sellers and taken down several products over the last few months for non-compliance and for not showing the country of origin. However, we're not clear on how many sellers and how many products were taken down from these platforms. Now, remember that the rules around displaying the country of origin have in fact been in effect since Jan of 2018, but it's only in the last few months that there has been a lot of heat on these e-commerce companies to comply, especially after the India-China border tensions. And that is where really the focus of the government has been over the last few months. Now, Amazon has been fined, but we understand that the government has also asked the controllers at state levels and union territory levels to continue investigation and ensure that these e-commerce companies are complying to these rules.
Absolutely. Well, Mugdha, thank you for sharing the latest on that. Of course, this has been an ongoing matter, as you mentioned, for a few months now. But now let's put the spotlight on an audio streaming platform called Gaana, which now claims to have over 185 million monthly active users. The music streaming app, in a latest move, has now jumped on the short video app bandwagon as well, with the launch of Gaana Hot Shots in an attempt to consolidate its position in the OTT industry. Joining me right now is the CEO of Gaana, Prashant Agarwal. Prashant, thank you so much for speaking to us on Startup Street. There's been a lot that's been happening in the OTT space, and of course, a recent report released by the Indian music industry has indicated that the listenership of audio streaming services grew by 40% year-on-year in the first half of 2020. Talk to us about the kind of traction and trends you have been recording at Gaana.
So we have, we are the leading music streaming app in the country with more than 185 million users. And what we have seen is, with the pandemic setting in, we saw a growth in consumption on the platform with about 13% increase in consumption given the base that we already had. I think, two important things there. When we look at audio OTT, what happened is that one of the major use cases, which is commute, completely came to a halt with the lockdowns. And what we expect is that as the lockdowns open up, as the commute returns back to its normal, we'll definitely see a second wave, which we expect to be, adding another 30% growth from our current levels. The interesting thing there is that we have seen a huge growth in, consumption of motivational playlists, which was expected. And secondly, we are seeing people are actually consuming music across the day. And, the time-based boundaries that party music has kind of, please.
Yeah, not just motivational, but also an increase in devotional music. And those are some interesting trends. And we had those graphics flashing on the screen. But let me now talk about your latest entry into the short video space. Of course, this has been a hot sector for the past few months now, ever since especially the ban of TikTok. What was the rationale behind Gaana entering this space? And also talk to us about the fact that at some point, would you look at clubbing all these applications under one umbrella, perhaps build a super app at some point?
So we already have a super app. We actually had launched, user-generated videos from the singer community about a year back under the brand Gaana Videos, where we had exclusive, music content which was made available by the singer community for the users. And that content already gave us a lot of in-way with influencers, because most of the top influencers were engaged with Gaana across, various music videos. And so as the, ban came into picture with TikTok, the TikTok ban, we clearly saw that, we had all the relationships in place in terms of being, a deep relationship with the music industry, a very deep relation with the top influencers of the country. And that basically became, kind of a seed towards getting, the hotshots in place. So hotshots actually is part of the Gaana app. We haven't launched a separate app. What we believe is, as we look at the audio, ecosystem, we actually ventured into music. And then, last year we ventured into podcast. And about, 10, 12 months back, we also launched Gaana Videos. So the idea is that a user who comes to the platform is able to consume, all forms of content. If you look at the short video content, you'll see that majority of the content which was actually popular was actually, music sync videos where people were actually syncing.
Music driven, right.
Yes. So that clearly, dovetails.
Absolutely. So you had one piece.
No, also a lot of music.
Right, you had one piece of the puzzle already right there. Prashant, I'll have to jump in here because we're very, short on time. But I quickly want to understand, you've clearly have been working on the music and now the video part. So the business model is evolving and moving in that direction. But let's talk about how you plan on making money out of all this. Can you tell us how much of your revenues are driven from advertisements at this point? And what was the impact, especially during the pandemic?
Yeah, so see, our revenues are currently about 60% of revenues come from ads. The rest comes from subscription, which is, the music subscription that we sell. The ad revenues definitely got impacted during, the pandemic, as with other businesses. So we are looking at a muted growth because we have seen that the CPMs, which were, clearly down by half in the pandemic, have come back to the pre-COVID levels, and our revenues are back to the pre-COVID levels. So we expect to have a muted growth on ad revenues, but we'll see growth on the revenues on the back of subscription.
Okay, so riding on subscriptions for now. Prashant, thank you so much for joining us and sharing those details with us. With that, Mugdha, over to you.
All right, Megha, interesting conversation there. Before we move on to our next segment, there's a funding update that's come in. Unacademy Group has raised investment from Tiger Global and Ragania Investment Group and is now valued at $2 billion. So that's the latest funding update. But moving on to the next segment, direct-to-home food essentials brand Country Delight this week raised $25 million in its Series C round of funding led by Elevation Capital with participation from schemes managed by IIFL as well as from existing investors such as Matrix Partners as well as Orias Venture Partners. The company is now looking to expand beyond milk and milk products into several different categories. Joining us to discuss these plans, we have Chakradhar Gade, co-founder of Country Delight. Thank you so much for joining us, Chakradhar. And like I mentioned, you've said that this new round of funding will be used to develop and launch a broader set of food essentials such as fruits and vegetables, pulses, pickles, jams, etc. Give us a little more details and tell us what the timeline is for this.
First of all, thanks a lot, Mugdha, for having me here. Just a little bit about us. We are basically a direct-to-home food essentials brand. And we are currently, serving nearly 1.5 lakh subscribers across some of the key metropolitans in India. And, our basic philosophy is to give, pure, fresh and minimally processed food products directly to the doorstep of the customer. And what this means is our entire product development is purely focused on consumer feedback, and we iterate our products towards perfection because we fundamentally believe that our customers deserve the best quality products at the lowest possible price and in the most convenient format directly to the doorstep. So, and we are a 7-8-year-old company bootstrapped for the better part of our existence. But since the last 3 years, we've grown nearly 50 times in size after raising institutional money. And, we've been backed by Orias and Matrix till now. But regarding the current plans, what we are trying to do is basically enter new categories where, again, purity, freshness, and minimal processing play a big role. Some of the key segments that we are looking at is basically fresh fruits and vegetables. We're looking at cold pressed oils and rice and wheat. These are, some of the key sectors. Beyond that, over a 2-3 year time frame, we will be looking at more such products, primarily bringing back the original food form where, purity and fresh products and minimal processing are the core values that we stand in whatever we do.
Okay. So you're launching more products at Country Delight. Is this something that the customers have been demanding? And I just wanted to also ask you, during the pandemic, what is the kind of demand you have seen and what are the challenges for you to deliver those products especially during the lockdown?
No, that's a great question, Mugdha. So basically, we've been one of the few businesses which had positive tailwinds initially with the pandemic. That said, that's a lot of power to our business model and the support that we've received from government in general. We are a full stack business, so we have full control over our entire supply chain. What this essentially helped us do, and we are very consumer focused in our thinking. So we have, not delivering milk even for a day or not delivering any of the essentials even for a day is something that we take very, very seriously. So even on the worst day of the lockdown, we were having 96% fulfillment rates to our customers. This led to, a great amount of, positive feedback and loyalty and word of mouth. So we've seen our business grow 60-70% during the last 7-8 months.
Okay. And Chakradhar, quickly, if you can tell us what is the kind of growth that you have seen in the average revenue per user, especially also during the pandemic, but also over the last few years, we understand you're seeing, fast growth there?
Yeah, absolutely. So see, initially we started, with our daily subscription and our proprietary distribution through liquid milk. But over the last 2 years, working with our consumers, we've developed a bunch of products around dairy value-added products as well as staples. So our ARPU growth, average revenue per user, has gone up from roughly 1,800-1,900 rupees to roughly 3,000-3,100 rupees per user per month, which is pretty good and leads to very solid unit economics in our business.
Absolutely, that's a big jump in average revenue per user, and hopefully it'll also go up since you're adding, more categories. But thank you so much for joining us, and all the best with those plans. But time now to slip into a short break. But up next, we talk to an Indian dating app, especially in the light of several Chinese dating apps being banned by the government. Don't go anywhere.
Welcome back. You're still with us on Startup Street. In this segment, we're putting the spotlight on what this application calls itself, a high-intent dating app called Aisle, founded in 2014. The application recently became the second most downloaded dating app in India after Tinder. In fact, as per a recent report by market intelligence platform AirNow data, Aisle saw close to 3 lakh downloads in the past 3 months, 16% more than its competitor Bumble, which was erstwhile the second most popular application. Joining me right now is the founder and CEO of Aisle, Abel Joseph. Abel, thank you so much for being with us on Startup Street. Now, I was looking at the top 5 dating applications in India, and Aisle seems to be the only made in India application. You're, of course, competing with the likes of Tinder and Bumble. Take us over your startup story. How did you set up Aisle, and what made you enter the space?
Thanks, Megha. We started in 2014 as a high-intent dating app as an alternative to arranged marriages. And we always saw Indians as somebody who would actually gravitate towards features which would help them to meet people who are more of their kind. So Aisle has fields like faith, mother tongue, etc., which is not really available on casual dating applications. So I think that's one of the reasons why people have gravitated towards Aisle, especially in times of the pandemic.
All right, let's quickly address the fact that the government has, of course, been on a cleanup spree and has banned over 220 mobile applications so far. Of course, there were new ones coming in today as well. But yesterday, the list that we saw, 43 Chinese mobile applications, many of them included dating applications. Another window of opportunity for you to take over that market as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we applaud the ministry for banning the so-called dating apps. And the reason why I call them so-called dating apps is because we haven't really heard or read about people who have used these platforms and have met people offline. And I think it's the basic duty of matchmaking applications to connect people online, but also take them offline. So there always seemed to be something fishy about their business models, and we're glad that the action was taken.
Okay. I believe you've been trying to find the middle ground between, of course, as you said, the traditional matrimonial websites and the casual dating apps that rely on quick swipes and gamified versions of trying to find a match. But help us understand, how are you doing that? Apart from the few features that you mentioned, explain your model. How does it actually connect to people?
Yeah, so we've always focused on the older age groups. People above the age of 25 who are employed, probably working 40 to 50 hours in a week, and don't really have the time to look beyond their circles. And of course, it's not very wise to have a romantic relationship within the workplace. And that's the sort of audience that we're addressing. And it's been a step-by-step growth. We started with metropolitan cities with the hypothesis that we want Indian men and women online at the same time. And it was probably the working women of India that would actually, jump on board with the idea of online dating initially, and then scale towards tier 2 and tier 3. So the way that Aisle works is once somebody signs up on the application, they do have a free tier where they can send out likes, but the premium version allows you to send something called invites. And internally, we call them love letters. And what essentially happens is the premium user would send a message articulating as to why that user is indeed interested in the other person. And the other person would read that and either decline or accept. And if it's accepted, that results in something that is scientifically known as reciprocal matches, which is, I think, a little more serious than an anonymous match on a casual dating app.
Okay, dating, of course, several reports have shown, has seen a surge during the lockdown. So apart from sheer boredom, what else is prompting people to put themselves out there and find love? What are some of the trends that you've been observing on Aisle?
Yeah, I think it all started with boredom in the first half of the pandemic. what we observed on the platform was that the number of matches per user increased, but the depth and the length of each conversation decreased, right? But towards the second half of the lockdown, I think people started to become a lot more lonelier, and the number of matches per user, it came back to normalcy, but the length and the depth of each conversation, that was far higher than pre-COVID times. So I think that's a trend that we're seeing. Romance is definitely back, and it's in the conversation, it's back in the culture.
Well, lockdown has nothing on love, clearly. Abel, thank you so much for joining us on Startup Street and sharing those trends with us right here on the show. With that, it's a wrap on this edition of Startup Street. But don't go anywhere. We have more news and updates coming up for you on the other side. Stay tuned.